The Bridget, coronavirus and trade wars are certainly causing economic hardship, but despite all this, the global economy is expected to grow rapidly in the coming decades. In fact, by 2050, the world market will have doubled from its current size, although the United Nations estimates that the world's population will increase by 26% during that time. This economic growth will bring about tremendous changes, but it is very difficult to say what the future holds. Most economists agree that the developing economies of today will be the developed and economic powers of the future. According to The World in 2050, a report by PwC, a global professional services firm, 7 of the 6 global economic powers in 30 years will be the economically developing countries today, with the United States second to third on the list. We'll go to the level. Thus, Japan will move from 4th to 8th and Germany from 5th to 9th. The report says that in the coming decades, countries such as Vietnam, the Philippines and Nigeria will also grow economically and move up the list. 5 countries that are said to be booming in the coming years. We talked to their people and asked them how to cope with the changes taking place in their surroundings. What are the benefits of being in the region with rapid economic growth, and what are the problems or difficulties they are facing? China. If the country's gross domestic product (GDP) is equal to the purchasing power of the people, which is calculated by equalizing the price difference between different countries, then China has become the world's largest economy. Asia's largest country has grown rapidly over the past 2 decades, but economists say its growth so far has been slower than it has been in the coming decades. Equal to salt. In the eyes of the Chinese people, the country is experiencing rapid economic growth. Ron Cole, a Chinese writer from Sochi Province, China, says that when he came to the city 15 years ago, there were fields and ponds all over the area. He said that in these 15 years, the shape of the entire area has changed, and now this juggling city has become a shopping paradise with huge shopping malls, industrial parks and restaurants, and a lot of traffic. It would not be wrong to say that the whole country has changed. Due to this rapid economic growth, skilled businessmen and people looking for better opportunities are being drawn here. China's largest city is Shanghai, where many people start their own businesses. John Paban, the founder of the Shanghai-based Flickr Strategic Advisory, says Shanghai is a very business-minded city. He said that from the meat market in the morning till late in the evening, everyone who was working in the offices till midnight was caught in a race of motorbikes honking their horns at the traffic signals on the roads. However, unlike New York City, where people hide everything, everyone in Shanghai is willing to listen to each other and give the best advice. He said that in order to live here, you must learn Mandarin Chinese. If you don't know the language, the opportunities to work and do business are limited, and you may not be invited to social and cultural events. India, the world's second most populous country, is set to grow rapidly in the next 3 decades. According to the report, India will have an average growth rate of 5%, making it one of the fastest growing countries in the world. By 2050, India is expected to overtake the United States as the world's second largest economy and account for 15% of the world's gross domestic product. The positive effects of this economic growth are already beginning to show in people's lives. Saurabh Jindal, who runs a company called Talk Travel, says he has seen India change in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. He said that this economic development has brought a lot of changes in the lives of the people. He said that in the last 15 years, for example, the brands of TV sets, mobile phones, and cars have changed. Jindal said air travel has become more accessible and people's homes have become more luxurious. This improvement has also caused problems. The number of vehicles on the roads has increased exponentially, but the investment in social infrastructure has been reduced. Lack of strict enforcement of laws has led to an increase in pollution, especially in big cities like Delhi. People have not benefited equally from this economic growth. Jindal said many people still live in extreme poverty. You will see slums between tall buildings, he said. The attitude towards women in society is also very disappointing, and the number of sexual crimes against women is reaching alarming levels, and the country is facing a crisis. Namita Kulkarni, a Mysore resident, said the country's development is determined by the human rights of its citizens, and the country still has a long way to go. Unless women are safe in public places, all this progress is meaningless, she said. Kulkarni's advice to foreigners was to take a good look before coming to India, as the situation in different parts of India is very different from each other. He said that different states have their own culture, language, way of life, food, and traditions. He personally likes the northeastern states. Jindal's advice to newcomers was not to bring the lifestyle of their countries to India but to do what happens in India. He said that if you adopt India, then India will adopt you. Brazil, the South American country, will be ranked 5th in the list of economically developed countries by 2050, behind Japan, Germany, and Russia. Rich in mineral resources, the country has grown rapidly over the past 2 decades but faces problems such as corruption and inflation. Caio Bardo, a Brazilian citizen, says he has seen the country's economic growth at the end of the first decade of the 21st century and the beginning of the second decade. He said that a newly affluent class has been born in the country and people are proud of this prosperity. At the same time, the big Brazilian cities of Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo have become very expensive and it is not easy for people to live here. According to him, the situation has reached such an extreme that it is now felt that Brazil should not have developed at the pace it should have. He said that with this development, the ports, airports, trade corridors, roads, railway tracks and bridges which were to be constructed were not completed. Many technologies have to be adopted quickly in Brazil due to the problems caused by economic growth. In many developing countries, higher growth rates are a precursor to higher inflation. Sociologist Annalisa Nash Fernandez says that due to the difficulty of saving due to inflation, Brazil has become a founding country adopting art tech. He said that online apps like PayPal and Venmo have been a part of people's lives in Brazil for the last 20 years, before the advent of smartphones and ATM machines. The country was hit hard by the recession in 2016, but the economy is showing signs of recovery, and 2020 could be a crucial year for the new president to take office. Another Brazilian resident, Silvina Farpier, said the country was still facing economic difficulties but was certainly on the path to development. He said that Brazil is a big country in the fields of industry, minerals, and agriculture, but the services sector is also developing rapidly here. Now there is also an investment in the tourism sector. Regardless of economic growth, newcomers are always welcome here, especially if they want to learn the language. Brazil is a very loving country that welcomes foreigners, he said. Brazilians are very sociable. When a foreigner shows interest in their culture and language, they feel great. Learning Portuguese will make you feel at home. Mexico. By 2050, Mexico will be the world's 7th largest economy. He is currently ranked 11th and will move up 4 places. His focus on industries and exports has improved the situation, but he has not been able to take full advantage of it due to economic difficulties. Federico Arzabalaga, a travel blogger, says that in the last 10 years, Mexico has grown economically, but not as much as I think it should or could have done. He said fuel prices had doubled and the value of the Mexican peso against the dollar had halved. If you know how to work hard and you are looking for opportunities, you can do a lot here and make more money than many other countries, he said. Treatment and transportation in Mexico are much cheaper than in the United States, Canada, and Europe. Suze Haskin, an American journalist, says the average taxi fare in Mexico City is between 4 and 10. Roads and social infrastructure are not as good as in many other developing countries, but the government recently announced an investment of $44 billion over the next 4 years, according to Reuters. Every region of Mexico is very different from other regions in terms of climate and culture, so foreigners are advised to get information before coming here. The hospitality of the locals is very helpful to the immigrants in settling here, and especially if you have an understanding of the Spanish language. People are always ready to help you and help you overcome difficulties in communication, Haskin said. Nigeria, one of Africa's largest economies, which is set to grow rapidly by 2050. It will grow at a rate of 4% per annum, rising from 22nd to 14th in the list of economically developed countries by 2050. The Nigerian government is mired in corruption, but the business climate among the people, the wheel of progress is running. According to global business statistics, 30% of Nigerians have a business mindset and are the owners or managers of some business, which is the highest in the world. Kolit Otishiu, the owner of a local TV channel, says there is turmoil everywhere. Nigerians are very hardworking, they are working on more than one thing at a time, which means that something is happening everywhere. The country's problems, such as the lack of public transport, have become a business opportunity. He said that Okadas, an Uber-like motorcycle riding company, has now emerged in Nigeria, which is now widely used, which was not so reliable in the past. Now, just like Uber, you can track its driver, he said. The people of the country are optimistic about the future, but they are worried about corruption at the government level and foreign investment. Chizuba Inuha, founder of another Nigerian company, said the Nigerian people should be aware of which countries are receiving investment, what the conditions are and who will spend the money. He said that in the past, other countries have been benefiting from their natural resources and raw materials. Lagos and Abuja are good places to stay for those who come from the outside world. These are both big cities where the schools are very good, the food is good and the nightlife is great. To settle here, you need to know someone you can trust, he said. Foreigners are easily identified here, so they are easily targeted. He said it was important to be careful about your surroundings and people.